Good day, everyone. I was born and raised in Detroit. Growing up there, I saw people like me running things. This is a courtroom, not a circus, so we're gonna calm down.
I'm sorry.
What I found there was a passion that I didn't know existed.
This is the bottom line.
I'm excited to free fall into the limitless possibilities with we the people. So many are fearful of the law. They think it's something that works against them.
I think you need to begin to accept responsibility for your mistakes.
We are the people.
Chadwicky claims his costume rental business provided 40 pirate costumes for the defendant's musical, but he hasn't been paid.
All rise.
Ellen Sears says the costumes were labeled Sexy Pirate and were not appropriate for her underage cast members.
Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Lauren Lake presiding.
You may be seated.
Hello, Your Honor.
Hello, thank you, Sean. Good day, everyone. Good day. This is the case of Wicky versus Sears. Mr. Wicky, you are suing Ms. Sears for $2,600 for breach of contract. You say the costumes were delivered. The defendant, Ms. Sears, you say that the outfits went off script. Is that correct?
That is correct,
All
Your
right,
Honor.
I'll start with the plaintiff. Tell me about these costumes.
Certainly. We'd worked with this company, Ms. Sears' company, on several other productions. And
what type of business are you in?
I have a costume rental business.
Okay.
So for the past 15 years. And we'd never had an issue with any of our costumes before, so we trusted her, and therefore she requested 40 pirate costumes for a musical. We delivered the 40 costumes as required by the contract, but we allowed her to just pay a $400 deposit because we knew that they'd be getting revenues back after the show, and so we trusted that we would then get full payment.
And so you've worked with her before?
Yes.
What type of business are you in, Ms. Sears?
I'm the director of the South Side Community Theater.
All right. And so you had ongoing business with Mr. Wicky.
That's correct.
You needed pirate costumes.
For our most recent production, we needed 40 pirate costumes. I did reach out to Mr. Wicky, and he assured me that he would be able to deliver the costumes that we required. We do have middle school and high school students that do the performance at our theater.
Oh, this was for middle school and high school?
Yes, it is.
Are you aware, Mr. Wicky, that this is middle school and high school kids?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
All right. And so you order the costumes. They're delivered. And so why are you here today?
Well, because, as I mentioned earlier, she refused to pay the balance, the $2,600 balance, despite our performance of the contract, providing the costumes that were requested.
And why did you refuse to pay the balance, Ms. Sears?
The costumes that were sent were not the costumes that we agreed upon. On the original invoice, it only said pirate costumes and the correct sizes for the children. Then on the shipping statement that I received with the actual costumes, there were a majority of sexy pirate costumes, which are totally inappropriate for junior high and high school students. And so he sent something that we did not agree upon.
Did you have a contract that specified the type of costume? Male, female, age range?
It had.
This is the moment the case turns from ordinary parental disagreement into every parent's nightmare. Paul was 12, riding a motorized scooter, wearing a helmet, and then in one split second, everything changed. Now, legally, that split second matters. The court has to look at whether David acted unreasonably. Was the scooter age appropriate? Was Paul supervised? Was protective gear used? Did David ignore a known danger? We hear that Paul had a helmet, but David admits it may not have been the greatest helmet. That line hurts because it captures exactly how these cases work. A parent can make some responsible choices and still face questions about whether they did enough. But accidents, even tragic ones, are not automatically negligence. The law does not usually punish someone just because the outcome was terrible. It asks whether the person failed to use reasonable care. And that is where Judge Lake is going to have to draw a very careful line.
I'm looking through.
It had the sizes. I don't have the original invoice with me. Mr. Wiki might have it with him.
I see the invoice. Pirate costume rental, large. Pirate costume rental, medium. Pirate costume rental, small. Totaling $3,000, $400 deposit paid, $2,600 due and owing. It doesn't specify for a child or a minor. It just says pirate costume.
Well, with our previous working relationship, he knew it was for children, and then when I placed the order...
Did you know it was for children, Mr. Wiki? Did you know this theater group was for children?
Children, yes, but older children. I mean, these are middle school and high school, so it's not like very young children.
You're like 11 and 12 and 13 in middle school.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I'm looking at this exhibit right here. Is this one of the costumes you sent?
This is, but this is not the way we would, in a situation like this. Like, we would not have them dressed like this. This is what I propose to do. In fact, I said with some minor adjustments, these do not need to be as sexy as they are. Sexy is more of a branding that we use, but they're not inherently sexy.
And so there was no specification to how many male costumes and female costumes. What did you receive?
So when we distributed the costumes to the students and they went to the changing areas to try them on and then they came back in, it was complete chaos in the room because the costumes not only were inappropriate, they had tags inside them that said sexy pirate costume. And there were 10...
I see this here in your evidence inside the shirt, sexy pirate costume.
Yes, that's the tag. And then also on Exhibit D, that was the costume that was sent for the male students. And I do want to point out that the shirt, the yellow shirt underneath, was not included as a part of the costume. So Mr. Wiki sent costumes for the boys that had this tiny little vest that didn't even cover their chest. So what he's assuming they're going to go bare-chested on stage and then have these little booty shorts on.
How many days before the performance did you receive these costumes?
We received the costumes the Sunday before the performance. And
when was the performance?
On Thursday of that week.
Coming up.
It was a 3-hour drive, but I offered to come out and just show, just with some minor adjustments, how these could be made less sexy, less revealing. And she just slammed the phone down.
If you'll be in the Los Angeles area and want to bring your case to court, call 1-888-552-6878. You're watching Emmy-nominated We the People with Judge Lauren Lake. We're back with a dispute between Ted Wiki and Ellen Sears over sexy pirate costumes.
Okay, so you got them Thursday of this week. Did anybody open them up, look at them and say, uh-oh, I don't think these are good for middle school and high school students. Let me reach back out?
Well, on Sunday when I received the costumes, I did open one of the boxes and I pulled one of the costumes out. They were individually bagged with the size on the front, so I didn't feel I needed to open them all up and check them out. But
who would open them up and check them out?
At that moment, I would.
Well, it's the Sunday before a Thursday performance. Who was in charge of receiving the costumes?
I was, and I did open one of them, and it was fine. And what it turned out, there were 10 costumes that did not have the sexy pirate label inside, and they were different from the ones that we see here. So 10 were usable and appropriate for the age group, but 30 were not.
And what did you do with the 30 that weren't? Because when did you figure out that these 30 weren't usable?
On Monday, when we distributed them to the students, they took them out of the bags, they tried them on.
So you allowed the students to take the costumes out of the bags before an adult looked through all of the pirate costumes?
Well, that's part of the reason why we have the students try them on. We want to make sure they fit, that everything's correct.
No, there's a step before that. There's someone that receives them. There's someone that unloads them, unpacks them, lays them out, put them on hangers, and get ready to distribute them to the students. You have to know what that is.
Right. I received them late Sunday night.
Because how would you even know? Well, you have medium, you have large.
It was labeled on the outside of each individual costume.
But was it labeled male, female as well?
They were
How did
sorted
they know
in the
how many male
boxes.
and how many female to bring? Because it's not in this contract.
I had discussed it with Mr. Wiki when I placed the order.
All right, so you guys just handed these bags to the kids. They opened them up. They said sexy costume. They had nothing. They were very revealing. And so what did you do?
I collected them. I contacted Mr. Wiki to let him know about the situation.
And do you have evidence of you reaching out to him? Did you do it by phone or by email?
By phone.
Okay. You remember getting that call, Mr. Wiki?
I do.
What day was that call made?
That was on Monday. And
all right.
So I immediately offered, I said that, we've done this, we've distributed these costumes to other junior high and high school productions, and there's never been a complaint, but I said I could come out. It was a 3-hour drive, but I offered to come out and just show, just with some minor adjustments, how these could be made less sexy, less revealing. And she just slammed the phone down. So, and I tried following up again. I called several times, but got
no one
response.
answered.
No one answered.
Were the costumes ever returned to you?
They were not. And so the typical rental period for a production like this is 2 weeks. So my expectation would have been, if she's not going to use them, she would return them immediately. And yet they were kept for the 2 weeks. So I was unable to rent them to other customers during this peak rental period. So that's why I was deprived of that potential, revenue rental by her keeping them for the full 2 weeks.
Why didn't you just return them? Why didn't you just keep the 10 that worked, take the other 30 and have someone drop them back off over at his place and say, none of these work, I'd like to have a refund for these. They're too revealing.
Well, first of all, it's a 3-hour drive to his place, so it wasn't a quick drop off. And then I was in panic mode. I had just a few days to try to get
That video of Paul changes the atmosphere completely. Up until now, we have been hearing about him as the subject of a dispute, but seeing him respond by blinking reminds everyone that this case is not really about Anna winning or David winning. It is about a child fighting through a catastrophic injury. And Judge Lake's concern is very practical. Moving Paul across state lines may satisfy Anna's need to be closer to home and closer to doctors she trusts, but it could also disrupt a treatment plan that is already showing signs of progress. Notice how the judge frames the issue around Paul's life, not the parents' conflict. That is crucial. In custody-adjacent medical disputes, courts often focus on the child's best interests, continuity of care, and whether the requested change creates unnecessary risk. The emotional stakes are enormous, but the courtroom still has to ask the coldest, hardest question. What is safest for Paul right now?
Placement costumes. I was driving around all over town, going to costume shops to purchase other costumes that the students could wear that would be appropriate.
But on the phone call that you made to him when you said, hey, these aren't really working, and he said, hey, if you give me an opportunity, I can show you how to make these less revealing. You can still use these. He said you hung up, you didn't call back. He was offering help to show you how to do this. I mean, I'm looking at this costume right now, and the way it's presented now, it is, of course, a very sexy pirate costume. But I immediately, in my mind, have redressed a 13-year-old girl with leggings underneath or a baggy pant, and you wear the shirt, and instead of the shirt being off the shoulder, you bring the shirt up on top of a tank top. You can tack it in the inside so it's not coming off of her shoulders. There's just a lot to do with this costume if you wanted it to work.
Well, I did want it to work, but I've done a lot of modifications on costumes in the past, and I just knew having him come down would be a complete waste of time. Yes, you could lift the sleeves up a little bit, but this performance was a musical. There's a lot of high energy dancing and movement across the stage. Something like that would not stay on the students' bodies. And not only that, some of the high school girls, they like wearing things like this, even though it's inappropriate, for a performance with children.
Coming up.
It's not like I wasn't going to send the costumes back. And if he felt he really needed the costumes, he could have driven down and gotten them himself.
You're watching Emmy-nominated We the People with Judge Lauren Lake. We're back with a dispute between Ted Wiki and Ellen Sears over sexy pirate costumes.
So this is interesting, as you are very specific about what the children need to dance in, because you have very specific parameters. They've got to be able to dance comfortably, not be able to hike it up, not this. Why is none of this in the contract when you're asking him about what you want? You're not specifically saying we want a long skirt past the knee for a 13-year-old girl that stands about 5 feet tall or 4 foot. Where are the details? You're very detailed now in your defense, but there were no details really. We want to get 40 costumes. 20 medium.
We've had a prior working relationship. The things that he has sent in the past were all very appropriate. And the 10 that were in the shipment were what we discussed. There were 10 that were appropriate. It wasn't one of these. And the other 30 were like this.
And so my point is, the 3 hours, right, that you said it wasn't worth you driving them back up, wouldn't it have been worth that to make sure you got your money back?
Oh, absolutely. But I was in a situation where I had to start going out and looking for other costumes. It's not like I wasn't going to send the costumes back. And if he felt he really needed the costumes, he could have driven down and gotten them himself. Is
it your usual relationship that once you're done with the costumes, Mr. Wiki, do you go pick them up, or does someone return them to you?
No, someone always returns them. That's
so once you knew they were once you offered to help,
correct,
and you got no response, you were expecting to see your costumes.
Correct.
You did call back again?
Yes, I called back multiple times and got no response.
And so you basically were trying to get through your performance on Thursday. And how did you try to remedy this? How did you get costumes?
I spent 3 days driving around to different stores and bought
So you spent 3 days to drive around the stores, but you wouldn't spend 3 hours to go and return these 30 costumes you weren't using?
And then I'd have nothing for the students to wear for the performance.
No, you'd have the 10 that worked and then the ones that you went to go get.
Coming up.
Your Honor, he didn't ever ask for me to send the costumes back right away.
Why would he? Because his business is to rent the costumes.
You're watching Emmy-nominated We the People with Judge Lauren Lake. We're back with a dispute between Ted Hickey and Ellen Sears over sexy pirate costumes.
You don't have anyone in wardrobe? You don't have anyone in this theater company that could help you? You were just all alone by yourself?
I did have a couple adults that were able to help me organize and help the students with the costumes. But Your Honor, he didn't ever ask for me to send the costumes back right away.
Why would he? Because his business is to rent the costumes. So what he's low-key hoping is, well, maybe she thought she couldn't use them, and then once I explained to her there's a way to adapt these costumes, she figured it out. They never came back. He called about them. You didn't return his calls. For 2 weeks, he's like, okay, they decided to rent the costumes, and I'm gonna bill them $2,600, which is the balance.
He knew we weren't going to use the costumes. I made that very clear to him that we were not. And then I was planning to just send all of the costumes back at the same time.
Okay,
the 10 that we used and then the ones that we didn't.
You know what? You're having one of those moments. My son has these moments when, and I tell him, I'm gonna tell him you the same thing I tell him. You got all the answers. Everything I've asked you, you got an answer for. Which honestly, as you're standing there as a defendant, and you're being sued for $2,600, you know, I understand that you are telling the court the way you saw it. The problem is the way you handle this is inconsistent with the way a responsible theater owner would reasonably respond in a situation like this. If I had rented costumes for $3,000 and received 40 costumes and only 10 worked, I would be making an arrangement with Mr. Wiki immediately in writing. I need these exchanged out. How can they be exchanged out? If they can't be exchanged out, I want a written email making sure you understand that I am not paying for the other 30 costumes. Also in that discussion would be a time frame so you wouldn't be charged for them. And also so that he could rent the costume to someone else that may have wanted the costume.
Judge Lake's verdict when We the People returns. You're watching Emmy-nominated We the People with Judge Lauren Lake.
You kept the costumes for 2 full weeks without sending them back, all the while saying you were never going to use them. He doesn't know if you used them or not. You missed a beat here. And that was you didn't fully examine the costumes. And once you did and they weren't what you wanted, you did not set up the proper return operating system to make sure they got back to Mr. Wiki. You kept the costumes 2 weeks, whether you used them or you didn't, you kept them. Judgment for the plaintiff for $2,600. Court is adjourned.
Judge Lake rules for the defendant again, and this one comes down to personal responsibility in the most literal sense. Alexandra suffered real damage, and no one is minimizing how frightening that fire must have been. But courts do not award money just because something bad happened after a purchase. They need a legal link between the defendant's conduct and the plaintiff's loss. Here, Daniel sold a used sofa in apparently decent condition. Alexandra brought it home, placed it in a room with a space heater, and the fire report pointed to heat from that nearby heater and extension cord setup. That breaks the chain she needed to prove against Daniel. The lesson is practical and a little painful. As is means risk transfers fast, and fire safety around upholstered furniture is no joke. Ginger survived, Alexandra survived, but the claim did not. Final takeaway. Both cases were emotionally charged, but Judge Lake kept returning to the same courtroom principle. Proof matters more than pain. In Reynolds versus Reynolds, Anna's fear for her son was completely understandable, especially given Paul's devastating injury and her professional background as a trauma nurse. But the court denied her request because the $25,000 was for future speculative care, while David was already paying expenses and Paul's current medical team was still treating him. In Reyes versus Whitmore, Alexandra's fire damage was real, but Daniel was not legally responsible because the evidence pointed to the space heater setup, not a defective sofa or hidden misconduct by the seller. Two plaintiffs walked in with genuine losses. Two defendants walked out with judgments in their favor, and the broader lesson is this: tragedy, frustration, and financial damage do not automatically create liability. Courts need evidence, causation, and a legal duty. If you found this case as shocking as we did, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdowns.